And I think when we talk about ethics in the economy, especially in difficult economic times, sometimes we are challenged to take shortcuts, to ignore ethics. And I think that is both short-sighted and does not lead to the long-term benefit of both the society and the economy. So why do ethics matter? Ethics provide the guidelines for conducting our social and business relationships. Certainly, it provides standards for conducting business. It promotes confidence in business. Ethics creates shared values amongst the society and amongst the business community. And it promotes access to capital, greater confidence from investors. So there are really three levels of ethics in our society. There is sort of the national or the macro ethical standards. Then there is the corporate level of ethics. And finally, there is the individual standards of ethics, which can also translate into SMEs and entrepreneurs and how they do business. What happens when we as a society or we as a country start to accept unethical behavior as something that is okay? I personally believe that a country's culture can decline if there is greater acceptance and more justification of dishonesty. Victims, consumers like you and me, are going to be required to take actions to protect ourselves from abuse. There will be a growing mistrust or lack of trust in government enforcement and oversight, which leads to a sense of helplessness. And then it leads to lack of trust in corporate reporting and a lack of confidence in the money that's invested in these companies. Finally, I believe it leads to a toxic environment of mistrust, dishonesty, lack of responsibility, lack of integrity. I think we have a mix of high-level mistrust of big business. We have a high level of mistrust of government. We have this sense, as consumers and citizens have a sense that there has been a breach of societal community values. So in the ideal world, this chart tries to represent, in the perfect world, it tries to represent what creating an ecosystem or a culture of ethical behavior would mean. And that is, you have honesty, respect, integrity, fairness, and responsibility, balanced by the demands and expectations of society, by government, by corporations, and by individuals. These core values, honesty, integrity, responsibility, fairness, and respect, it's what drives individuals and motivate people's actions, or corporate actions, or government actions. How do we go back? How do we rebuild ethics in an economy? And I think there are several ways. One is social and cultural peer pressures. And then I think our culture and our communities need to convey and communicate the lack of tolerance for such behavior, where social media becomes a way to condemn such actions and expose such misbehavior. Public shaming, which can lead to, hopefully, the adoption of remedial behavior. Transparency, which can lead also to remedial behavior. Stronger government regulatory compliance and enforcement. And appealing to long-term financial well-being. Governments can gain the trust, regain the trust of the population is to adopt regulations and enforcement. I spent 10 years on the NASDAQ listing council, and our responsibility was to oversee the listing and the conduct of publicly traded companies that traded on the NASDAQ. And I was on the board for this 10-year period. And I will tell you, the companies that had the biggest difficulties in conducting themselves in an ethical way were the smaller companies. They had problems with appointing family and friends to boards of directors. The type of financial information they reported was not reliable, and there was very little transparency. The specific corporate benefits of high ethical standards enhanced reputation and goodwill. It reduces litigation. There's a stronger competitive position in the market. There's expanded access to the capital. It also means increased profit, sustained long-term growth, international respect for these enterprises. These factors are very important to investors and to capital markets. It is challenging. The statistics about the number of small businesses in Italy is amazing. 4.3 million SMEs, employing 69% of private sector employees. SMEs are challenged because we can't get access to capital. We can't get access to loans. And recently it was just announced that consumers are pulling back. They're concerned about the economy in Italy. So their consumer consumption rates are at the lowest levels since World War II. Italy also has very heavy regulation of SMEs, which discourage growth beyond 10 employees, 15 employees, 25 employees. And I think there's a lack of confidence in government enforcement. That is, if they see something wrong and they go and report it to a government agency, do they believe that a government agency will take action to correct the problem? I think there is some lack of belief in that. So, while it is challenging, as a former entrepreneur, I also believe that the actions of individuals can make a difference. Because you have a personal knowledge of your suppliers and your vendors. You know when you go to that butcher, you know where that butcher got his meat, okay? When you are asked by a customer if you can extend a little credit because maybe their pension check hasn't come in quite yet, you know whether or not that customer is trustworthy. So your community and personal networks give you the opportunity every day to act ethically. So how do we turn it around? And I am a firm believer in the concept of the individual making a difference. Maybe that's a unique American concept, I don't know. I would like to think that individuals can make a difference by banding together collectively, by developing a community, a network that demands ethical behavior, whether it is in your local community, whether it is in your business community, or whether it is in your government. Honesty, integrity, fairness, responsibility, and respect are core values that should transcend any culture and any nation. And I believe that change can happen. Italians are good people. They are strong people. And I know that you desire this change as much, not just for yourselves, but for your children, just as my parents wanted change for us. Do right, though stars may fall. And if they fall, do not sin to keep them up. Thank you very much.